everyone, it's me. So this week, first off, it's sunny. We're facing this way. Get some natural light in. Finally seeing the light here in England. Number two, I don't remember. What am I doing? I have received actually a bunch of messages and questions from fellow expats or people like interested in moving abroad soon on how do you make friends as a foreigner in a new country. Let me tell you, it sucks. It sucks. Oh my God, it sucks. However, it is not impossible. So I've typed up a few tips that I've been following and I found useful. And I thought I could share with you guys this week on how to make friends as a foreigner. So without further ado, let's go. Now, just as a disclaimer, I sort of identify myself as an anxious introvert. So socializing does not come naturally to me at all. Just not at all. So for me personally, I found making friends really difficult, but I've kind of always found making friends difficult. So being in a foreign country just kind of like takes it to the next level a little bit. But don't let that freak you out. I have made friends. So let's just say if I can make friends, you can make friends. We can do this together. Now, when I first moved here, there was so much change. That was really overwhelming. Trying to get a new job, trying to figure out how to use the buses, how to get around, just trying to figure out people's accents. It was super, super overwhelming. So making friends was kind of like the bottom of the list. Like I needed to just get everything else sorted first before I got the friend aspect of things. But I was sort of going off of the belief that I would just make friends naturally. It would just happen just spontaneously. I would just be making friends. And realistically, it doesn't work like that. So on a day-to-day basis, I go to work, I go to the gym, I come home, shower, eat, hang out on the couch for a little bit, then I go to bed. So where am I going to be making friends? You know what I mean? Like there's no real opportunity other than work to make friends naturally. So I guess the first thing to take away from this is making friends doesn't necessarily happen just randomly. Like it requires effort. I guess that's the thing. It requires effort and like a continuous effort to get to know someone, to then be friends, then be hanging out and like doing stuff. And it is a long process. Maybe it's long for me personally, just because sometimes it takes me a long time to get to know people, because like just the way I am. I'm not like extroverted that I could just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, let's have a conversation. We should get some coffee, like hang out with me. Like I would rather bury myself alive than do that. So me personally, making friends is a long process. It's a continuous process. It takes effort. So I guess just understand that friendship takes time. God, I've not even gotten to my tips yet. One way you can make friends is using Meetup, which I used a couple times. I personally wasn't successful in like meeting people through that, but I'm glad that I used it, if that makes sense. So Meetup is a free online service, I guess you could call it, where you just register your own profile, you put your name and your picture and like what your interests are, and then it shows you different meetups or groups in your area. So based on my interest in board games, there might be a board game meetup, in a town over, and they meet up every Thursday of the month or whatever. So it basically just gives you opportunities to join different groups that have different interests. Now, none of the groups locally really interest me in terms of hobbies or interests. So I joined like a girls' night one because I just really wanted girlfriends. Like I can't stress the importance of having like a strong girlfriend group. It's just completely necessary. So I went out to this girls' night group twice, I think, and it was so awkward. Oh my God, it was so uncomfortable. But essentially we met up for dinner, and I guess the downfall of a girls' night group is that there wasn't necessarily anything connecting us other than the fact that we were all women. So I'm sitting there having dinner. The lady next to me is in her 60s. She's telling me about her granddaughter who recently went to Canada and stuff. And so as much as it was really wonderful connecting and meeting with people and talking and having that sort of social interaction, there wasn't enough connecting us that we had some sort of common interest. There might have been, but it wasn't obvious and it never came up. So I went twice and then I stopped. And I think the group actually disbanded because the host woman couldn't really be bothered anymore. So, I mean, take Meetup with a grain of salt. I think it's really helpful in just getting you out there. So, you know, I went out to dinner twice. I'm proud that I did that and I didn't buckle on the anxiety like at the last minute like I wanted to. But I didn't actually make friends from it, but it is still a great opportunity, and I would definitely check out Meetup. I would definitely check out Meetup when you are living in that foreign country. Hopefully they have that website. Here's hoping. And then at least you can meet some people with common interests, and even if you don't end up being friends, at least you have that opportunity to get out there. Another great way to make some friends is through work. Like I mentioned, my routine, work was like one of the only opportunities where I could actually meet and socialize with people on my like day-to-day life. So one of my tips for meeting people through work is just, you know, try your best. I don't know, it's hard. I'm not particularly outgoing at first. Like I said, it takes me a long time to get to know people and like open up to people and like that sort of thing. I'm just not good at the social. I'm not good at small talk either. And that's really hard because at work, a lot of the time you use that small talk to get to know people. God bless, I'm awful at it. But another great thing with work, hopefully with your work, is there are work functions or work parties or the Christmas party, or maybe there's like a really big birthday you get invited to. So my tip with that is to accept as many invitations as you possibly can. So even if you're like the new person, it's right around Christmas time, a lot of businesses here in England will have a Christmas party. Go to the Christmas party. Go. Even if you're like super uncomfortable and really nervous about it, do it. It makes a huge difference. Just being involved in those types of activities, to meet local people, to feel included, make friends, and it makes a huge difference. And if your work doesn't necessarily do that sort of thing, maybe even suggest it to your boss. Like, wouldn't it be cool to do some sort of like escape room one weekend? Or maybe, you know, do people want to go to the pub after work on Friday? Like, just getting out there with those types of people and making friends that way is really helpful. Now, for me personally, meeting friends through Facebook has been the most successful for me. I have to make friends online. Nice. But the great thing about Facebook is that you can find people of similar interests. So joining a Facebook group about anything that you're interested in, and then maybe throwing out a post being like, hey, I live in this area, anybody want to meet up? And have like that interest meetup. Does that make sense? So maybe you join a Facebook group in your county for hiking because you really are interested in hiking, and you post like, hey, I'm new to the area, I'd love some hiking buddies, and maybe meet up with people that way. And then you're doing an activity that you already enjoy. You and these people both enjoy the same activity, so at least you have something to talk about and to do together, and then you use that time to get to know them further. So definitely check out Facebook groups. Really helpful. They can be definitely helpful. Another tip for making friends in a foreign country, sometimes it's just really helpful to meet up with fellow expats. It's not the greatest plan long term because really you want to be friends with local people and be more immersed in that local culture, but sometimes being friends with people from your own country can just like get the ball rolling. So through Facebook groups, I met Canadians that were living in England, and most people tend to go to London because you know, it's the big city and there's lots to do and that sort of stuff. But thankfully London is not that far from Kent, so I could just hop on a train, go up to London, meet with this girl, hang out. It's always uncomfortable at first, definitely. So don't pretend it's not going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. In that sense, it's really helpful because you both are going through the exact same thing, really. So even if you don't necessarily have similar interests, you've both done a big, scary life event and moved from Canada to England. So at least you have that as like a jumping off point to talk about, and you can sort of base your conversations around that. And it's also super helpful to connect with other expats when you're having issues. So maybe you're feeling like particularly homesick. As much as English people are wonderful, they may not necessarily understand what you're going through if they've never lived abroad themselves. So to have somebody nearby, or maybe, you know, you add them on Facebook and you live a couple towns away, and you can just message them and say, you know, hey, feeling really homesick. What are some of the things you do to help with homesickness? Because you're both in the same boat. So it makes a really big difference. But again, in the long term, making friends with fellow foreigners isn't always long lasting. Well, the internet is great because you can stay friends literally forever and like never see them again. But making friends with foreigners in that country, like all the Canadians that I've made friends with have since left because their visa is expired and there's no way for them to stay in England longer, and so they go back home. So I've made these friends, and that's great, and we keep on touch online and stuff, but they're not here and I can't spend time with them. So just keep that in mind. You know, kind of need to diversify your friends group if you can. But definitely it's helpful, especially if you're moving to a country that doesn't speak your native language. So not only are you trying to learn a language and you're like really overwhelmed, it could be so helpful to have somebody that speaks your language that you can spend time with. Plus, then you can learn with them, you can go out and do stuff with them, and you don't have to be like alone. You know, Billy No Mates. That's a phrase I picked up here. Another great way to meet people is through sports or teams or sport teams or team sports. Unfortunately, I suck at sports, and I've always sucked at sports. And I just will probably never get better at unsucking at sports. That doesn't sound. I'm not good at sports. I'm not a sporty person. I go to the gym because it makes me feel better, like emotionally, but I can't play any kind of sport, really. However, joining a sports team is super social. There are so many like football club leagues and stuff locally here. I can't play football or soccer, for people who don't know what football. I can't play football to save my life, and I'm really not that interested in it. Sorry. But I know a lot of people who do play in football leagues, and it's a super social event. You know, you can hang out afterwards in some of them. So definitely check out sports teams locally, and it's just a great way to get out, A, to be active, and B, to meet people. Another big thing I noticed is netball. There's a netball league or multiple leagues around here. It's like, I don't know what netball is. I had some people explain to me, it kind of sounds like basketball. Like, I used to play basketball, but it's like, instead of playing basketball here, you guys play netball. It's weird. Another great way to meet people are by pub quizzes. There are A, so many pubs, and B, so many of these pubs do a quiz night. So you can go and just participate in this fun quiz, you know, a Wednesday evening or whatever. And I find, in my personal experience, that people are far more easy to approach when they've had a couple pints in them. Especially like myself. If we've both had a couple pints, everybody's feeling happy, you know, a little bit competitive, it's so much easier to approach people and talk to people and use like a quiz, a pub quiz night as sort of the starting off point. One of the big things I found in general is you need to see people repeatedly to become friends. So maybe I see somebody at the grocery store and we have this little conversation, okay, well, that's it. I'm never going to see them again. I'm never going to have a conversation with them. So it's like you need something almost like a weekly basis that forces you around people so you can get to know them and become friends. So like we've talked about work, obviously you go to work every day. You see these people every day. It really gives you the opportunity to become friends and know more about them. Pub quizzes, like once a week, that's a continuous thing. Sports teams, again, continuous. You go to practice, you go to games, anything like that where it's like a continuous thing gives you a far better chance of getting to know people. Another great way to make friends as a foreigner is by having roommates. Now, I personally love to live without roommates, but they are a great way to meet people. So maybe you share a room with somebody or you share a flat with multiple people. Even if you don't become friends with those specific roommates, they might introduce you to somebody else who you get along with like really, really well. So it's kind of like just being open to scenarios where you can network with as many people as possible. So like my best friend back home, I met through a friend. So me and the girl were like not really close, but we were friendly. And then I met this other girl through that previous girl, and her and I were like really good friends. So it's just like meet as many people as you can, because who knows that you might get along, you might not, and who knows who they will introduce you to. Do you know what I mean? Like just meet as many people as you can. I've also found like making friends is literally like dating. Like I'm trying to convince this girl that I am worth spending time with. Like it is just such a weird experience. And especially as you get older, it's so much harder because, you know, people are married, you know, or have a partner that they want to spend time with. They've got jobs, they might even have kids, you know, they have all these commitments that they need to spend their time on, and you have to convince them, you know, forget all those other things, spend time with me, you know, let's be friends. It's hard. It is definitely hard as an adult. But those are some of my tips for making friends as a foreigner. It's hard. It is hard. I'm probably the worst person to take tips from, but these are some of my experiences personally. I found work has been really helpful, meeting people, and Facebook groups has been really helpful, because then at least you've got time to get to know people. It just works for me. If you've ever lived abroad or you currently living abroad, please leave some tips down below. I'd be really interested to see what works for different types of people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!